Welcome to my channel, Black Knight Scary. I'm so glad you found me. Please make sure to leave a like on the video as it helps my channel grow and reach more viewers. Enjoy the fresh content and subscribe now. And remember to click that notification bell so you don't miss a story in the future. I know there are thousands of channels just like mine that you could have chosen, so thank you for choosing mine. I truly appreciate your time. To have your story featured on an upcoming video, email the link in the description box below. Thank you all for listening. Sit back, relax, and enjoy these truly terrifying laundromat horror stories. Most of us have been there at that late night 24/7 laundromat. You want to get caught up on your clothes for the week? Well, what happens when you're cornered by a complete stranger? Do you go into fight or flight? These stories will truly terrify you. Make sure if you do go out places like that late at night, please don't go alone. Stay safe out there. Story number 1. The worst thing about working the late shift isn't the exhaustion, it's the silence that follows. I clock out from the diner at 12 sharp, the city exhaling around me, and I drive home through streets slick with neon reflection. My routine is sacred, mostly because it's the only time I have for myself. And once a week, usually Tuesday early morning, or accurately 1 a.m. Wednesday, that routine takes me to Spin Cycle City, the only 24-hour laundromat open this far from the interstate. Tonight was Wednesday. The laundromat was exactly how I liked it. Aggressively bright, sterile, and utterly empty. Fluorescent tubes hummed overhead, casting a sickly white glow over 40 industrial washing machines that lined the walls, like silent metallic monoliths. I dumped my week's worth of scrubs, dark jeans, and uniforms into machine 12. Inserted my quarters and waited for the heavy hydraulic sigh of the water filling the drum. I settled onto the hard plastic bench, pulled my earbuds out, and felt the familiar slump of exhaustion wash over me. The building was echoing with the slosh and spin of my laundry, a comforting, monotonous sound. As always, my hand was instinctively tapped to the inner pocket of my hoodie, where I kept the small black housing of my taser. The only thing that made me feel remotely safe doing laundry at this ridiculous hour. 5 minutes later, the door hissed open, allowing a rush of cold, damp air to seep in. I didn't look up at first. Sometimes a shift worker or college kid would drift in, seeking the same cheap, lovely convenience that I was. But then the silence stretched. The man didn't move towards the soap dispenser or the change machine. He just stood there. When I finally lifted my head, the pit of my stomach dropped instantly. He was tall and thin, wearing clothes that looked too neat for this time of night. His eyes were wide and flat, but the thing that stopped my breath was his mouth. He wasn't smiling a polite, tired smile. He was wearing a grin. It was too wide, too fixed, stretching the skin around his cheeks until it looked stretched and unnatural, like a poorly fitting mask. It didn't reach his eyes at all. It was the smile of someone who knows something horrifying that you don't. There were 40 machines in the entire building, 40 empty, gleaming machines arranged in perfect rows. He walked past machines 1 through 11, ignored the row on the far wall, and stopped directly in front of machine 13, the one immediately adjacent to mine. The man dumped a small, pathetic pile of dark clothing into the drum, his eyes never leaving me. My throat tightened. I pulled my phone out and began scrolling aggressively, pretending to be deeply engrossed, but every nerve ending was screaming. The rhythm of my washing machine felt mocking now, a distraction the world offered me just before the danger arrived. The man didn't start his wash. He leaned against the machine, his hand shoved deep into his pockets, and stared out the large plate glass windows into the blackness of the empty parking lot. Over and over he repeated the motion. Glance at me, check the windows, grin wider, check the windows again. He wasn't looking at the road. He was checking for headlights, checking for witnesses. The dryer cycle felt like an eternity compressed into 20 long minutes. I stood up, pretending to be busy transferring my clothing, but really I was placing distance between me and this man. I kept my back to the wall, trying to gauge how quickly I could reach the front door. I noticed his laundry wasn't moving. It was just sitting wet in the drum. He wasn't here to do laundry. My heart hammered. I had my taser now clutched beneath the fabric of my hoodie pocket, the safety off. Just a few more minutes, I told myself. Just get the basket and run. Suddenly, the hum of the dryer seemed to fade. I heard the sickening drag of rubber soles on the tile floor, but it sounded muffled, distant. I looked up from my phone. He was moving fast, not running, but walking with an unnervingly quick predatory stride. He was heading straight for me. Before I could fully register the terror, he had boxed me in between the vending machines and the industrial folding table. The man's shadow fell over me, cutting off the fluorescent light. The fixed grin had vanished, replaced by a cold, terrible seriousness. He leaned in close, his breath smelling stale and metallic, pinned me against the folding table with his elbow. The noise of the dryers was loud enough to hide the sharp, awful sound of my own terror. "You're mine now," he whispered, the words ragged and wet. Then his hand shot out, thick and surprisingly strong, closing around my neck. The air instantly evacuated my lungs. My vision swam as I clawed uselessly at his wrist. The grip relentless, the pressure mounting, squeezing the life and light out of me. "Taser, taser," my brain screamed, but my body was already shutting down. A split second before everything went black, the heavy glass door of the laundromat chimed loudly. The abrupt, ordinary sound of the bell, the sound of someone else walking in, was enough. The man's focus broke. He cursed a low, guttural sound, and his grip instantly slipped. He checked over his shoulder, saw the silhouette of a middle-aged woman carrying a pink basket, and without a moment's hesitation, he bolted. He fled into the night, soundlessly and impossibly fast, leaving the door swinging violently on its hinges. I collapsed against the folding table, gasping, sucking air back into my lungs that felt like burnt paper. The woman looked at me, confusion etched on her face, then sat down in the empty aisle. She hadn't seen anything happen, only a man leaving and me looking like I just crawled out of a grave. I never did finish my laundry. I grabbed the soaking wet basket, ignored the woman's tentative questions, and stumbled out into the cold air. The whole terrifying encounter lasted less than 2 minutes, but it shattered my world. Now, wouldn't you know, every sound is too loud, and every night shift leads not to routine, but to the memory of that unnatural, terrifying grin and the chilling certainty that I was chosen. I know he's still out there, and he knows exactly where I do my laundry. Story number 2. The air in the laundromat hung thick and humid, a mix of detergent and stale sweat. It was late, the fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows that made the rolls of churning machines seem like predatory beasts. I was barely a year old, a silent passenger in my mom's weary orbit as she wrestled with a mountain of clothing. That's when she walked in, a woman, her face obscured by the dim light in a nondescript scarf, her movements a little too deliberate. She set up her own load, her gaze frequently drifting towards my bassinet where I slept, blissfully unaware. She started asking questions, her voice a low murmur that barely cut through the rumble of the dryers. She wanted to know my age, my weight, how much I slept. My mother, tired and a little unnerved, answered politely, wanting only to finish her chores and get home. An hour later, the bell above the door chimed again. A man this time, his silhouette filling the doorway for a beat longer than necessary. He didn't have a basket of clothes, didn't even glance at a machine. My mother was transferring laundry from the washer to dryer, her back momentarily turned, and then in an instant, it happened. She felt a shift in the air, a sudden stillness that screamed danger. When she spun around, the woman was gone from her machine, and so was my bassinet. Her heart hammered, a frantic drum in her chest. Then she saw them, the two figures, a dark blur bolting for the exit, my tiny form clutched between them. Horror, cold and sharp, clawed at her throat. She dropped the wet clothing, the thud echoing in the sudden silence. She ran. She didn't think, she just ran, her breath catching, out into the biting night air, her eyes fixed on the retreating figures. And then, a miracle, or perhaps a twist of fate so brutal it was indistinguishable. My father, who had unexpectedly decided to come home early from a late shift, was just pulling into the parking lot. He saw his wife, wild-eyed, chasing two figures carrying his child. He didn't hesitate. He ran, his heavy work boot connecting with the man's jaw with a sickening crunch. The man staggered, dropped me as if burned. The woman shrieked a raw animal sound and vanished into the darkness. The man scrambling after her, dazed. My mother scooped me up, my small body trembling in her arms, though I had slept through the entire terrifying ordeal. The cold night air, the harsh lights of the laundromat, the chilling echo of my mother's scream. It all added into a memory that would forever haunt the periphery of my life. The odds she'd whisper, her voice laced with a lingering dread. The odds that he came home early that night. The odds that he saved my life. They were astronomical, terrifyingly small. And yet here I was, alive to tell the tale. But sometimes in the deep quiet of the night, I still felt the phantom grip of those hands, the chilling question of what might have been. Story number 3. The fluorescent hum of the 24-hour laundromat was a stark contrast to the gentle lull of ocean waves I'd grown accustomed to. A week into our beach vacation, my wife and I had managed the impossible, an absolute, unmitigated crisis of clean clothes. With her sound asleep in the rental, I drew the short straw, my insomnia pushing me out into the humid coastal night. It was past 2 a.m., streets deserted and the laundromat a beacon of artificial light in the encroaching darkness. I unloaded my duffel bag. The chirping of the cicadas outside only other sound besides the rhythmic churn of the washers. There was something unsettling about this place. The way the light made everything look stark and sterile, casting long, distorted shadows. 30 minutes in, as I was adding detergent to the final load, the front door creaked open. 2 men cloaked in identical dark hoodies strolled in. They didn't speak, didn't glance at me, but instead settled onto the plastic chairs by the entrance, the only way in or out. Their presence was a sudden, chilling weight in the room, suffocating the last feeling of mundane normalcy. I tried to ignore them, focusing on the tumbling clothing, but their silent vigil felt like a physical weight. My skin prickled. I moved from washer to dryer, my back to them for a fleeting moment as I reached for my basket. That's when the world tilted. A shock of icy cold steel, impossibly sharp, pressed against the soft skin of my neck. Before my mind could even register a thought, a rough hand shoved me down. The linoleum floor was cold against my cheek, smelling faintly of bleach and despair. A low voice rasped, the words devoid of warmth, devoid of anything human. My breath hitched, a choking sob catching in my throat. I was on the ground, the stranger's heavy boot pressed against my neck, the glint of a blade still visible in my vision.
Please.
I croaked, my voice alien, thin with terror.
Please, just take it, whatever you want.
They didn't respond, just rifled through my pockets with brutal efficiency, snatching my wallet, my phone, small wad of cash I'd brought from the machines. They had everything. It was over, right? Then came the impact. Not a fist, but a sound like a firecracker exploding inches from my ear, followed by a white-hot agony that ripped through my kneecap. I screamed a raw, animal sound of pure pain. They were gone as quickly as they had appeared. The only lingering evidence of their visit was the smell of gunpowder and searing torment in my leg. I lay there bleeding, gasping, staring at the ceiling. The relentless hum of the machines now a mocking, indifferent soundtrack to my shattered world. I made it out alive somehow, but the cold steel against my neck, the taste of fear in my mouth, will be with me long after the physical wounds heal. The darkness that crawled into that laundromat followed me home, a shadow I could never outrun.